Hello everyone, welcome to Sharmit. In this session, we are going to talk about another topic related to HTML buttons, where we will talk about a form validate attribute, specifically the form validate attribute. So mainly we are going to cover what is form validate attribute, what are those scenarios where we are supposed to utilize form validate attribute, and what would be the benefits and disadvantages of using form validate attribute. So these all things we are going to discuss in this session. We are going to proceed in the same manner. Firstly, I'll show you the basic code. Then we will write the code from scratch. One by one, we will understand each and every line written in the code. And then later we will verify the output as well. Okay. But before we start the session, I just want to recommend you to please go and check out the previously released sessions first, because these all sessions are in proper sequence and sync. So if you follow them sequentially, then it would be very easy for you to understand the ongoing topic. Okay, so let's proceed with the session. So here you can see I have just noted down the basic HTML code. So if I show you the output of this code, you will see it is coming like this: HTML by Sharmit. Now another thing which I want to show you before we start the session is the question. So there is one question for each one of you. Like after watching this session, you can share the answer of this question in the comment section. It will not only help you to prepare for your interviews or exam, but also it will help others who don't know the answer of this question. Okay, and in case if you are not able to answer this thing, then maybe you can refer the previously released session where we have already discussed all these things in detail. Okay, so for today the question is, how many types of form enc type are available in HTML buttons. Okay, so I request you to please share your knowledge and put the answer in the comment section. For now we will just proceed with the further session. So let's see what we have written over here. So here I have just added one heading which is h1, showing HTML by texture myth. Then we will write one more heading, so I'll write h2 here, and it will show form validate attribute of button button tag in HTML. Okay, so this is the heading which I just added here. Now I'll save it and refresh my browser, so it will show like this: form validate attribute of button tag in HTML. Fine. Now what we are going to do, we are going to add a form, because we are talking about form, so it's mandatory for us to declare the form as well. So here what I will do now, I will put action first. So I'll specify action tspg of 10, and then later on I will put some input field here. So I just added input field. So firstly I'll add the simple input field with type text. So this is type text. Then I will write here name, which would be first name. Okay, fine. Now add another input field. I'll explain you the requirement also, but for now we are just adding the basic things. Okay, so I'll add text field, another text field, and this time name would be last name. In fact, we can use placeholder as well. So let's apply placeholder so that on screen it would be visible what value we are receiving from here. Okay, so I'll just mention first name here, and here I will write last name. Okay, now simply add another button, a normal button without any type of attribute. So I'll apply button, and the name of the button would be normal button, because here we are not applying that form validate option. Okay, so only we will just apply one attribute for type, and type would be submit. Alright, so we are ready with this. Now it's time to save this code and refresh your browser. So right now you can see we have one input field with a name first name, and another one is for receiving the last name, and one normal button which will throw the data to tspgm10, which we have specified in the action form action. Now let's say if I want to submit the data, so what I can do, I can simply put my data here ABC, in last name XYZ, and submit. So once I click on the submit button or the normal button, it will submit my data, and you can see the data here. We are in get method, so it is showing the data ABC and XYZ, and this is the content of TSPGM10. Now let's say if I don't want to provide any value, for example if I don't want to specify the first name and click on normal button, so still it is submitting the data, and you can say first name is blank, last name is XYZ. In fact, when both the fields are blank, in that case also it will allow us to submit the data. So the first requirement for this program is that we want to restrict a user to at least insert first name. If user is not keying in the first name, then in that case we will not allow user to submit the data. So how we can achieve this thing? By simply adding the required attribute here. So I will simply write here required, and that's it. Now save it and refresh your browser. So in this situation, when I click on normal button, now it will show that please fill out this field, because this is the mandatory field. Okay. So if you are not providing this field, then it will ask for you, it will throw this error, please submit the data or please fill out this field. The moment when we provide the data to this field and click on submit, it will accept the last name as blank. Why? Because we have not applied required on last name. If you want, you can apply that thing on required here as well. So I'll simply mention again required, then save it and refresh it. So now both fields are in mandatory. Okay, so this is the basic thing that we have prepared for our demo purpose. Now we will understand the form validate attribute that we can use with submit. Now the question is, let's say if you are doing some kind of testing and there are multiple fields on your page, and every time you don't want to keep all these things again and again, because right now if I want to test this thing whether it is submitting the data or not, so it will throw me this error, please fill out this field. Right now we have only two field, but there might be more than two field, 20 field, 30 field, or many field, right? So in that case, when you want to skip or bypass all the validation at a time, so in that case we will utilize the form validate attribute. So if I talk about the definition, then form validate attribute is mainly used to bypass all kind of validation from a web page. If you don't want to validate anything on a page, then in that case you will utilize the validate form validate. So let's declare a button which will allow us to bypass the things. So let me copy this button itself, or let's create it from scratch, otherwise you might get confused. So here I will write button, and the name would be here I will give the button name as button with form validate. Okay, now I will apply the type to this button, so type would be submit, and the next thing which I am going to apply here is form validate, which is a attribute. form Form no validate. Okay, so we have just applied the form no validate, not form validate, it's form no validate. Okay, form no validate. Now we can just simply save this thing and refresh your browser. So right now you can see we have applied the form no validate. So what we are going to do now, like if we are not providing any data and click on this form no validate, it will simply accept the data. Okay, it is not validating anything, but the moment when you click on normal button, it will validate each and everything. So by adding these kind of buttons, you can simply mention whether like you can simply specify whether you want to like you can simply specify these two type of buttons. So in case if you want to go with a validation, you can click on normal button, but if you don't want to go with the validation, in that case you can simply click on this form no validate. Now some of the user sometimes get confused that form no validate means we have to uh, specify it for performing any kind of validation, but no, it is not for validation, it is for avoiding the validation. If you don't want to follow the validation rule, then in that case we can utilize or use this form validate attribute with a button, and then whenever you use this button, it will submit the data without any kind of validation. It will not perform any kind of validation. Okay, so I think I made this mistake in the Hindi session as well. I by mistakenly write form validate, but it should be form no validate, because if you check here, form validate is nothing. Okay, it's only form no validate. So yeah, no problem. Like I think the thing is clear because with the name itself, it is clear that form no validate means we don't want to apply for the validation. So now I just request you to please share this the answer of this question in comment section, and not in a detailed manner. You can just write in a short way so that it will help us to reach to the wider audience, and also it will help us other members to learn the new things through comment section. So yeah, that's all for today. In the next session, we will discuss few more things. So thank you for watching TechSharmit.